Pepon Osorio was born in 1955 in Puerto Rico. He lived in Puerto Rico until 1975 when he moved to New York. In 1978, he earned a BSc in sociology. In 1985, he earned an MA in art education. When Osorio first graduated, he worked as a social worker in Puerto Rican neighborhoods. This experience would inform both his aesthetic and his artistic involvement with Latin American communities. The reason I chose Pepon Osorio to write my paperwork on is because he was a social worker and his art work focuses on social issues that affect the Latin community that a social worker might run into. One of the main social installations that he contributed to is the scene of crime. Whose Crime? Shown in 1993 in the Whitney Biennial. In 1993, it was featured in the New York Times Review, which launched major criticism towards the show. There was a controversy of what kind of works and which social groups could enter the dominant culture museum space. That made Pepon not want to show new work until it was mainstreamed in his community. The scene of crime is the body of a woman who we are led to speculate had been murdered by her husband. Her body, a mannequin corpse lying face down on the floor, is roped off by police tape with instructions: police line, do not cross. And the only access to the Latino body is by means of objects in the domestic space: photographs, sentimentals, bric-a-brac trophies, patron saints that signify the presence of real Latin bodies of one's intimate to this personal space. But as the title of the work suggests, however, that the question is, whose crime scene is this? Even though it represents the Latino body, must it represent an implied body? The welcome mat reads, only if you can understand that it has taken years of pain to gather in our homes our most valuable possessions. But the greater pain is to see how in the movies others make fun of the way we live. Pepon divines the issue of Latino domestic violence raised by the crime scene to directly confront the way the U.S. Latinos are represented in the mainstream American cultures as violent criminals. He made that connection, especially in Hollywood films, by using videos to underscore the relationships between the real. Actual video tapes, boxes of film depicting Latinos. Each box represents a statement. We are either seen violent, horny, or on welfare. They never show our humanity or our struggles and empowerment. Another statement is you see the negative stereotypes portrayed in the movie so many times that at some point you stop believing in yourself. The third main statement is, the more I see stereotypes, the more I feel excluded of the world, almost as if I'm living a reality that is not common by others. By using mirrors in the installation, Pepon confronts the viewer to look at his or her participation in the cycle of cultural wounding and cultural healing. Directly above the body is a mirror. Inside the video monitor that continuously plays a tape of a blood-filled urn breaking. In slow motion, the urn falls to the floor, shatters, and then pulls itself back together again. This repeated cycle of shattering and reconstruction represents the assault on Latin culture by mainstream media and signifies the repeated strategies of cultural resistance enacted by Latinos, including those represented in the scene and culture of Latinos. As you can see, Pepon Osorio created art that relates to the social field and installation of the crime scene, whose crime is it represents how the Latino culture is represented and how it affects them. I can see his artwork in two different ways. I can see his artwork in a murder scene, which is a social worker would have to deal with in their field. I can also see his artwork in cultural resistance and the feeling that it causes, and how social workers would come across that and have to handle that. And that is my presentation on Pepon Osorio. So as you can see, art can have many features and be interpreted in many ways.